If you are a green card holder in the United States, what you are about to hear could directly impact your future in 2026. A new USCIS notice is being discussed that may introduce changes affecting permanent residents in ways most people are not prepared for. While details are still emerging, early indications suggest possible updates to documentation requirements, residency compliance checks, and stricter review processes that could create serious complications for those who are not fully compliant with immigration rules. The concern is not just paperwork, it's what this could mean for travel, re-entry into the US, renewal applications, and even long-term residency security. Many green card holders assume their status is completely stable, but immigration policy updates like this can quietly change the conditions attached to that status without much warning. What makes this situation even more important is that misunderstandings or missing small requirements could potentially lead to delays, additional scrutiny, or in some cases, legal complications that take months to resolve. That is why staying informed right now is critical. In this video, we will break down what this USCIS notice is about, who it may affect the most, and what steps green card holders should consider taking immediately to avoid problems in the future. We will also explain what is confirmed, what is still unclear, and how to separate real policy updates from online rumors. If you are living in the US as a permanent resident or planning to apply for citizenship soon, you cannot afford to ignore this. Make sure you watch until the end so you don't miss any important detail, and if you find this information helpful and timely, don't forget to like the video so more people can stay informed and protected. The atmosphere around immigration updates in 2026 has been unusually tense, and for many green card holders, even a small headline can feel like it carries heavy consequences. That is exactly why this particular USCIS notice has been getting so much attention. People are trying to understand whether this is a routine administrative update or something that could quietly reshape how permanent residency is reviewed going forward. To be clear from the beginning, what we are talking about here is not a confirmed policy that strips anyone of status overnight. Instead, it is a developing situation around new guidance and procedural adjustments that USCIS may be considering or rolling out in phases. But in immigration systems, even procedural changes can have real effects on everyday life, especially when it comes to documentation, travel history, and compliance checks. A lot of green card holders operate under the assumption that once the card is approved, everything becomes stable and predictable. In reality, permanent residency in the United States always comes with conditions attached, and USCIS periodically reviews how those conditions are being interpreted and enforced. That is where things start to matter, because even small shifts in interpretation can change how applications are evaluated or how cases are flagged for additional review. One of the main concerns being discussed is whether there will be more frequent verification of continuous residency. In practical terms, that could mean more scrutiny of travel patterns outside the United States, longer absences or inconsistencies between declared residence and actual physical presence. Even before any official changes, these factors already matter, but the fear among many people is that the threshold for suspicious patterns could become stricter. And this is where confusion often begins. Many people think that short trips outside the US are automatically harmless, and in most cases they are. But immigration officers don't just look at individual trips, they look at patterns over time. If a new layer of review is introduced, those patterns could be analyzed more closely, and that could lead to additional questions during renewals or re-entry inspections. Another layer of concern revolves around documentation consistency. USCIS already expects green card holders to maintain accurate and consistent records, but any new notice or procedural update could tighten how inconsistencies are treated. Something as simple as mismatched addresses across different government records or delays in updating employment information could potentially trigger extra verification steps. Again, nothing here means automatic denial, but it does mean more friction in processes that used to feel straightforward. For people planning to apply for citizenship in the near future, this is where attention becomes even more important. Naturalization applications already require a detailed review of residency history, moral character, tax compliance, and continuous presence. If internal USCIS guidelines are adjusted, even slightly, it can affect how officers interpret borderline cases. That does not change eligibility rules overnight, but it can change how strictly those rules are applied in practice. Now, there is also a lot of misinformation spreading online whenever immigration news surfaces. Some posts exaggerate routine updates into dramatic claims about mass cancellations or sudden removals of status. That is not how the system works. Green card status does not disappear because of a single notice or memo. However, what can happen is increased scrutiny, more requests for evidence, and longer processing times. Those are the real-world effects that people actually experience when enforcement emphasis changes. It is also important to understand how USCIS communicates. Many updates are not released as dramatic public announcements. Instead, they appear as policy memos, updated guidance and manuals, or changes in internal procedures that become visible only when applicants start noticing new patterns in requests or processing behavior. That is why discussions like this often feel uncertain at first, because the impact is felt before the full explanation is widely understood. For green card holders who travel frequently, this uncertainty creates additional anxiety. Re-entry into the United States has always involved inspection at ports of entry, but if officers are instructed to look more closely at residency intent, even returning residents could face more detailed questioning. Things like length of stay outside the country, purpose of travel, and ties to the U.S. could become more central in routine assessments. Employment history is another area that sometimes gets overlooked. USCIS does not just track immigration status in isolation. It often considers economic stability and consistency of residence. Gaps in employment or unclear job records are not automatically problematic, but in a stricter review environment, they could become points that require clarification. That means more documentation might be needed even for situations that were previously handled without issue. At the same time, it is important to remember that green card holders still have strong legal protections. Permanent residency is a lawful status, not a temporary permission that can be casually revoked. Any action that threatens that status requires due process, evidence, and proper legal justification. So while concern is understandable, panic is not an appropriate response. What tends to matter most in situations like this is preparation. People who maintain clean, organized records usually experience fewer problems, regardless of policy changes. That includes keeping travel logs, maintaining updated address records, filing taxes consistently, and ensuring that any required updates to immigration records are completed on time. These are not new requirements, but they become more important when enforcement attention increases. Another point worth understanding is that immigration systems often move slowly. Even when a notice is issued, implementation can take months or even years, and sometimes policies are modified before they are fully enforced. So what is being discussed today may evolve significantly before it becomes a formal operational change. That uncertainty is exactly why staying informed matters more than reacting emotionally to headlines. There is also a psychological side to all of this that affects a lot of immigrants. The uncertainty itself can create stress, even when actual risk is low. People start questioning whether normal life activities could be misinterpreted, whether travel is safe, or whether small mistakes could create future problems. That kind of anxiety is common in immigration communities whenever new updates are mentioned, even when the practical impact is limited. But the key thing to focus on is clarity. USCIS operates within structured legal frameworks, and any meaningful change must go through official channels. That means notices, policy updates, and published guidance that can be reviewed and interpreted properly. Until something is formally confirmed, much of what circulates online remains speculation or incomplete interpretation. Still, even speculation can be useful if it encourages people to be more careful with their documentation and compliance. Many issues that arise in immigration cases are not caused by major violations, but by small inconsistencies or missing information that could have been easily avoided. That is why attention to detail becomes so valuable in times like this. For those planning long-term residency in the United States, especially those considering citizenship, this is also a reminder that immigration status is not just a one-time approval. It is an ongoing relationship with a system that can evolve over time. Understanding that dynamic helps reduce surprises when new updates appear, and as discussions around this USCIS notice continue to develop, one thing remains consistent: the importance of verified information over speculation. Official sources, legal guidance, and confirmed policy updates will always matter more than viral interpretations or social media summaries. Even now, many people are waiting for clearer explanations because uncertainty tends to fill the gap before official communication becomes widely understood. That is often how immigration updates unfold in real time, with early concern followed by gradual clarification as more details become available and properly interpreted within the legal framework. What happens next depends on how these discussions develop within USCIS and how any guidance is eventually structured and communicated to the public. Until then,